everything that you're doing, everything has like an energetic consequence. And if you're like hesitant about anything, you're never going to be fully sure about anything. I'd rather be 100% wrong with 100% conviction than like 50%, you know?
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
I'm all in. That's just the type of person that I am.
Welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Unleashed. My name is Edward Collins. I'm your host today, and I'm joined in the studio by Jamey Lee and Deepak Sharma, good friends of mine, and quite frankly, going to be an opportunity for you to learn vicariously. If you guys have been following the show at any pace, you know that I honestly believe that the best way to shortcut your journey to success is to learn from others. So today in the studio, we're going to be talking about Jamey and Deepak's journey, if you will, in their business, to give you an opportunity to learn vicariously through their trials and their triumphs. I can't wait to get started, so we're going to jump right in. Deepak, Jamey, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, man.
Appreciate 100%,
it. Beautiful
100%.
Studio, beautiful vibe. I love what you put together here.
Thank you so much. The vibe really is all about you guys, though, because as I mentioned in the opener, I can remember back when I was getting started in business, back when I opened my first business in 1998, I didn't really have any resources that I could reasonably rely on. This was before Google. It was before YouTube, definitely. So any of the learning I did was really by trial and error. And quite frankly, there was a ton of error. So when I thought about the process of how can I help as many business owners as I possibly could, I thought a great way to do that is just to tell the story of other business owners. And I'm not great at telling your story. You guys are going to be the best ones to tell your story. So what I'd like to do is to learn a little bit more about the two of you, and then ultimately how you guys met and how your business has been growing and the challenges it's been through and where you see things going forward. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So Deepak, I'm going to start with you since you're closest to me. So you're on the spot. Tell me a little bit about who young Deepak was. Like where did you get your start? Tell me about your background.
Awesome, man. Yeah, great question. Immigrant kid, actually born in India, but came to Canada when I was like 1. So I got, immigrant parents, first generation, if you want to call it that. And grew up with that context, but in Western society, in Canada. Mm-hmm. So, I was always an athlete. I always gravitated towards sports, and I always talk about that because I think playing football, I played American football.
Oh, okay.
It really shaped who I am as a person today. Just learned so many things about, teamwork, leadership, camaraderie, discipline, just so many different things that are instilled in me and who I am to this day. Always strive to achieve a lot of things. I was always driven by achievement. Whether it be school or work or making money or whatever it was, I always wanted to do great things. Graduated high school, went to university, studied international business at the University of Ottawa, and then landed a job for the federal government of Canada. So I was working a 9-to-5 job for about 5 years after university, and if I can be completely honest on this podcast here, I was miserable. I hated it. Super boring 9-to-5. I was working in pensions, meaningless jobs. And if anyone is watching this from my past life, yeah, it was boring as hell, if I could say that. So that kind of led me one way or another to explore podcasting. So that's why I'm so interested in this, because I listened to a lot of podcasts back when I was working that job. Okay. And that led me to starting my own, which led me to meeting a lot of entrepreneurs, which led me to start my own media company. And then I can kind of pass it up to Jamey on how we linked up together and started a new thing altogether. Okay,
before we jump down that road, I want to unpack a little bit more. Back when you were in school, what type of student were you? Did you excel at traditional studies?
So I was always getting very good grades. I was an honor roll student. I always wanted to get the best grades that I possibly could. Part of that's having the Indian background and parents who want you to
pushing you forward. No
matter what. Doctor, lawyer, engineer. Those are your 3 options, right? I didn't go down that path, but I was a great student. But if I'm being completely honest, I was a class clown. I was very social. I like to make people laugh. I was just always having fun. But I did well in school and sports and stuff as well. So like I kind of really like to do things the best that I could.
Okay. Jamey, I'm going to ask you the same question. Tell me about young Jamey. Where were your roots from and how did you grow up?
Yeah, I love this question. So I was originally born on the far east coast of Canada in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Okay.
If you don't know about that place, I would describe it, it's like the Ireland of North America. Very Irish influence, but that's kind of underselling it because the people there are very, very unique, and I encourage everyone to visit. But so I was born there, and then I was raised in Ottawa, Canada. Very Canadian upbringing. I played hockey competitively.
Oh, goodness.
Played that my whole life. Kind of like Deepak, where him and I always related, was we grew up where sports were pretty much our main priority. So for a long period of time, for me, that was hockey. As I got into my teens, I got into extreme sports like BMX and mountain biking, and even a little bit of skiing. And that kind of took over. And then I went to university for a couple years. I did a bunch of different things. Started off undeclared, went into communications, tried to transfer into entrepreneurship, got accepted, but then I decided to drop out. Okay. I fell in love with travel and the rest of the world and content creation. And basically, as a mountain biker, all you do is you want to film your coolest stuff.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I had an early introduction into video and content. And I kind of just took that to the next level around 2016. And invested in the Adobe Creative Suite. Okay. Would take my camera around with me all around the world, from South America to Australia to Asia to Europe and different parts of the U.S.
So you were definitely a globetrotter at a young age.
Oh, for sure. Like, I'm 26 right now. I've been to 32 countries and 6 continents.
God bless you.
So travel is a very core and fundamental part of who I am, and it's also how Deep and I related to each other so well when we first met. Which I guess is the perfect segue to how did we meet?
Yeah, how did you meet?
And so it was February of 2020, and I was, I was working full time as a social media manager and videographer at an agency. So that was like my 9 to 5. I was also polishing cutlery every evening as a busboy at a steakhouse.
Okay.
And on top of that, I had a little side hustle of doing like restaurant content, photo and video to make their Instagrams a little more interesting. So I was doing all 3 of those jobs, and all of a sudden, I'm on LinkedIn one day, and I get someone slides into my DMs on LinkedIn, and it's this guy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was looking to meet other videographers. He was a podcast host. We had a couple connections, and like the connections we had, I was like, these are cool people. He passes the vibe check.
Okay.
So then instantly we kind of just chatted. He sent me some voice notes and talked about that he really just wanted to connect with like video and content creators in Ottawa, and I was like, cool, let's hop on a call. We spent like 2 hours exclusively
on that first call.
On that first call, accidentally, just only talking about travel.
Yeah.
He's telling me
both
about
very, very passionate about travel.
Yeah, like he was telling me all about how he did an exchange in Norway that changed his life, and I was talking about how like solo travel through Southeast Asia changed my life. And we kind of just like talked about all these different travel experiences and really, really hit it off. And knew that we were just aligned as people. If you fast forward a few months, pandemic happened, obviously, and I lost all 3 of those jobs. Wow. So I got laid off from the marketing agency. Every restaurant in the world shut down. Yeah. So there goes my busboy job, but all my clients for my side hustle were restaurants. So I lost everything. And I think one thing that I've always been good at is kind of not just studying content creation from the perspective of like, how do I learn cameras better? How do I learn to do more in Premiere Pro? But I would study the distribution channels even more than that. So I was studying back in 2012 how to grow on Facebook, and I would build, I built a Facebook account from 0 to 150,000 followers while in high school as a joke before even influencer marketing was a thing. And I remember I used to analyze like, why did this photo do so well and this one didn't? And I would look at the data and try to marry that with like creativity. So I kind of built my foundational skill sets back then. And I saw the opportunity of TikTok, and I was like, I need to be creating
This
here.
is like March 2020 you're talking
Yeah,
about.
this is like March 2020. I'd already started creating on TikTok. I think my first post I ever put up there was like 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
you were right at the forefront, right?
I've always tried to have a good eye on what's next, because, and I'll reinforce this, I am more passionate about social media and the distribution than any other part of the creative process.
Okay.
So I was like, this is the platform to make it work. The goal is to be a travel vlogger and make that happen. And I repurposed all my travel videos. Nothing hit. And then I started pivoting to local travel content. Of like, this is the best hike you'll ever go on around Ottawa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you made it as personal and as close to you
Super
as possible.
personal, super actionable. So
Truly
anyone
niche too.
Yeah.
very exactly.
You
And
didn't have
so
a choice. It's not like you could travel in March
Exactly.
2020. You know?
Yeah,
Like,
no planes.
exactly.
No trains. Barely any automobiles on the road.
There was nothing else to do, and so I kind of took it upon myself. I was like, I want to be the guy in my city that makes sure that everyone here has fun,
Okay.
regardless of like the current circumstances of the world. So in like an 8 or 10 week period, I went from 0 to 30,000 followers on TikTok.
Wow.
Just by showing off my favorite hikes, favorite little quick restaurants that you could go order out from because you couldn't dine in.
Oh, yeah.
And all the things to do. So I became known as like this little mini local celebrity guy who was the dude that told you all the cool stuff to do and made your summer less boring. And that's when Deep hit me up again, because he's like, man, the last time I was talking to you, you were working 3 jobs, you were doing all these different things, and now everyone in the city knows who you are. You're getting millions of views a month in a small city. Like,
Yeah.
we need to talk about this story on the pod. So like, let's run it up. So I show up to his little shoebox apartment.
Okay.
And it was basically in the attic of a small house.
Is that an accurate description? It was an attic?
it wasn't a small house and it wasn't an attic, but yeah.
He's
It's
close.
like pretty close. And like, so he had this podcast studio, not nearly as nice as this, set up in his room. And you actually had to like
Humble
move
beginnings.
the bed.
Hey, gotta start somewhere.
I totally get it.
You had to like move the bed out of the way and stuff. And so we record the episode that changed our lives. And we realized that's 2 for 2 good conversations.
Okay.
And
And yeah, at that time I already had a media company, whatever that means, right?
Right.
But
yeah,
like,
nowadays, everyone has a media
yeah,
company.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I was just doing odd jobs and contracts, and I was always good at like, working with people who, let's say I had them on podcasts, and they'd, oh, can you do this for me? And I would always just get other people to do things.
Right.
Right. I was
You were
never
the matchmaker.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
And so I had started making a little bit of money, and I was like, I had this one big contract, and I was like, hey, Jamey, like, do you want to help me out with this? Like, you want to like, I know you shoot videos, like, you want to like be a contractor on one of these projects.
Okay.
And then, yeah,
that project happened to be working with a personal trainer for NHL players.
Oh, okay.
And so that brought me back to my hockey roots.
Mm-hmm.
And the first shoot that we did, I said to Deep, and I was like, yo, we got to try Tony on TikTok.
yeah.
And I was like, this guy just has like he's got this crazy personality. He's so charming, so charismatic, but more than that is he's knowledgeable and has every ounce of credibility in his space. I was like,
Yeah.
and
That's
I
really
just
what
had
you're
this
looking
exactly, and I had this funny feeling. I was like, I've already done this before. Like, I bet you I could just make a pop right away.
Yep.
First video we put up got like 100,000 views.
Wow.
And then the second video got like 150,000 views. And by the end of the
goodness.
month, he was at 10,000. And that's when Deep and I kind of realized something. Like, wait a second.
Okay.
Like,
You got something going here.
There's something here.
yeah, I was like, and I had another client at the time. Shout out to my man Adam Chapman, who kind of was the same story. He was in a different industry, completely different. He was home services, like gutter cleaning, window cleaning, driveway sealing. And in his first month, I believe we got 10,000 followers as well. So I was on a three-peat in 2020 of like
Wow.
10,000 in less than a month. And Deep's always been the type of person who is very business first, creativity second, and I'm the inverse.
Right. That's
But-
why you complement each other well.
Exactly. And so we kind of just like sat down and chatted with each other and realized like, hey, like we could really grow these brands together by merging these skill sets, because like the stuff that Deep does, I don't really want to do, and vice versa.
That's a marriage made in heaven.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and I love that you use that word, because I often describe to people it's a business marriage.
Absolutely.
When you're as serious about this life as we are. And
any true partnership is a marriage.
it is. It is. It's a full commitment.
Each of you are making a true 100% commitment to the other, and in the grand scheme of things, you're both looking for the same outcome, which is a happily ever after.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's somewhere between happily ever after and where you are today is the journey of business that you are engaged in. So
Exactly.
I love it.
And so, yeah, that basically all kind of started October, November of 2020, us working together. By January of 2021, we formulated the company in Ontario. And
so you again, just to backtrack, because I want to make sure everyone's following. You had the marketing company that you were essentially operating. You jumped into it, still under initially as a marketing company, but now you've pivoted to really be, at this time, this was like October, November 2020, pivoting more towards the social media aspect of it, specifically TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was something that we decided to start jointly as business partners in a new venture.
And what was the name of that business?
The new one?
Yeah.
Deep Social Brands.
Deep Social Brands. So that is the TikTok juggernaut that's moving other businesses forward in their pursuit of social media, stardom, fame, just awareness.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and we view ourselves as a personal branding agency more than anything, because obviously TikTok right now is a vehicle.
Yeah.
It's a big one, right? It won't always be.
Correct.
There might be something else one day. There might be, one of these other platforms might take over, or it's always going to evolve, right? But personal brands aren't going anywhere anytime soon.
I think Gary Vee has a way of saying it where he basically says the medium doesn't matter. It's the message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you figure out how to tell the message. The mediums will change from time to time, but if you can tell the message the right way, it doesn't matter the medium.
Yep.
You still get the impact.
And the transferable skills that go from platform to platform. The things that I learned building my mountain biking Facebook community from 2012 to 2015, I still use today on TikTok.
Let's explore that a bit. Like what are some of those things that you learned in the Facebook environment that you translated to TikTok?
Yeah, so the first thing was like understanding analytics.
Okay.
Right? So I remember I would look at it was a meme page. So we would make memes about mountain biking.
Okay.
And I would actually like look at two memes that were posted on the same day. And let's say one got 5,000 likes and 100,000 impressions, the other got 500 likes and like half that, or like a tenth of that in terms of impressions, say 10,000.
Okay.
I would look at it and I would be like, why? I would always ask myself, why did this one outperform the other? And more often than not, I would discover patterns, and I would be like, no, the ones that perform the best, that get 20,000 likes, are the most relatable. They're less niche. So it's still like, you don't want to go too deep, because sometimes you'll hit somebody really, really hard, but it's like, is that always your goal? Right? And so I would analyze content through the lens of like being extraordinarily intentional with everything. So if I had a very, very particular person that I wanted to connect with, then I would niche down and make the best content in the world for them. And it wouldn't get a lot of views. And I was like, oh, but that would do really well in the back end for business results, because at the time we were selling merch.
Okay.
Or like jerseys. And if I really wanted to go viral and get pages like Red Bull to share our content, then I would take pop culture and just make it very simple.
Okay.
Right? So an example would be, we had a meme that was shared by Red Bull at the time. They had like 45 million followers on Facebook. And it was a scene from Step Brothers. And it said, oh, so you ride bikes too? Do you want to become best friends? So it's just so relatable. Right. And it was being shared by communities that weren't just in downhill mountain biking. It was being shared by like the road cycling community and like all the adjacent.
Anyone who could relate to it.
Exactly. And that's why that post went crazy, because like, as long as you have the basic interest in bikes, you will relate and like this, right? We never made it too specific. We never talked about any technical terms or anything like that. And so now I still use that on TikTok today.
Okay.
If I'm working with clients, I'm like, okay, let's figure out who your ideal like client is and who your ideal target market is. And do we want to go a bit more general and try to appease more people, or do we want to get a bit more on the sniper approach and get a specific person? Some people have different goals, and that was something that I can really attribute to back then, as kind of like the fundamentals of just studying analytics and creativity together.
So you guys decided to jump down this new path together, late 2020. Now it's 2021. How did things evolve during that year?
Yeah, 2021 was a crazy year because that's when we really decided to make this an actual business.
Okay.
And I've learned that there's a big difference between freelancing and just getting a couple contracts here and there, thinking you're a business, and actually running a business. And for the longest time, we were the business. Mm-hmm. It was just me and him. We'd actually go out to shoots, and I'd be the creative director with like a script, and he'd be filming, and we'd be on the fly, and it was really raw and fun. And a lot of clients, we weren't getting paid from, so it was just like, it was like we were just doing work and like thought we were gonna get paid, and like things happen, and we learned a lot. It was an exciting journey, but now we've got about 15 people on the team. Okay. My younger brother works for me full time. Okay. My cousin works for me, and we've just got some superstars on the team who crush it. Now I feel like we actually have a business. Okay.
Yeah, I talk about what I refer to as the entrepreneurial pyramid, where a lot of people at the base case layer, you're an employee, you're working for someone else, you're basically trading your time for dollars, and at some point you get this bright idea that I either have a skill set or a product I invented or I have exclusive access to that I can bring to the market, and the market will trade their dollars for whatever it is I'm bringing to the market. And that initial phase, a lot of people consider themselves to be business owners, but I don't agree. I think that's the phase where you become a job owner.
Right.
You own the job, and that's where you were in the beginning. Mm-hmm. You owned the job of getting it done. Yeah. You probably wore many hats. But you eventually, if you are serious about business, you do graduate to that business owner level where you start to leverage out and add team members and duplicate or replicate yourself amongst others so that you can spend less time in the business and work more on the business.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, that's how we're here on an afternoon.
This is a weekday afternoon. We're recording this.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about that process. Like right now, you're spending a lot more time working on the business than in it. Like when did that transition take place for the two of you?
Well, to be completely honest, it's still taking place.
Yeah.
We're not completely removed from it. If I look at it like this, like until both Jamey and myself can remove ourselves from Slack, like actually not be in it, we're still in the business, right? And right now we are, but it's a little bit more high level. It's a little bit more strategic decisions and like direction for team leaders and people who already are, they need to execute on what we are kind of directing them to do. Mm-hmm. But I will say that there was a very clear split when we realized that like, hey, we can't keep let alone not scaling, but we can't even keep going on like this because we can't get more clients if we keep putting our own time. And Jamey edits all the videos, and I'm doing all this, and then I'm taking care of sales and the ops and the this and that. I'm like, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most difficult things for business owners to be able to do is to relinquish that control over the doing to others.
It's tough.
Yeah, but when you have that moment, that very first time that you do it, I'm telling you, it can become addictive.
Oh, yes.
It's the best.
Because relieving yourself from the doing so that you can be much more creative and strategic about growth, because that's ultimately what an entrepreneur is interested in. They're interested in growing an enterprise. A business owner tends to want to be able to own the income source.
Right.
An entrepreneur wants to build something and grow it. And
wow, that's
scale.
a really interesting insight. I've never thought about it that way, but that's so true.
Yeah. When you look at 2021 then, so that was the year you decided to make this a real thing, put in the processes and procedures. Help me to understand a little bit more about that. Like, obviously you don't have to go into specifics about what you do on a daily basis, but what was your process of learning what needed to be done?
Yeah, the first thing that we had to outsource was editing.
Okay.
And posting.
But how did you learn to do that? Like what sparked your idea to outsource in the first place?
Well, if I could just jump in for a second, like what I was kind of talking about before with my previous company, what I learned that I'm best at is not working.
Oh, okay.
So I learned that like I it's not that I have an aversion to work. I would rather not. And if I could get someone else to do it, then I learned very early on that I can outsource and delegate things and still get the job done and profit off the difference. I got addicted to that very early on. So that was my like main skill set. So when I met Jamey, and he did not initially think that way, because he's like, well, I could just edit. I could just post. And like, did that work for the beginning? Of course it did.
There's also cost benefits of doing it that way. Absolutely.
But I'd always nag this dude like, bro, get someone else to edit these. Okay. Let's get someone else to post these. Let's get someone else to, even shoot these. Right? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
No, it's for real. And so to emphasize what Deep is saying, like there was a lot of just sort of like internal limiting beliefs that you have to break down in order to get there, right? So with me, it was, I love to edit. Like I actually kind of still do. Okay. And that was part of my issue, was like, why would I give up something I enjoy doing to do? And even the posting, like I am genuinely that guy that is so nerdy about every part of the process of what we do that it's tough to pull me away from it because I love it that much. Right. But then when we got to the point where we had like 3 clients that we're posting for pretty much every single day, one of them is 2 times a day. Wow, yeah. And I'm doing all of the edits, I'm doing all of the posting, all the client like back and forth.
60 to 80 hour a week job.
Yeah, it was just not it. And so we had to hire somebody right away to delegate at least the edits and some of the posting to. And that was step number 1. We kind of worked our way through that process. And I was still editing quite a bit, and I was still posting for some of our clients. But then as we kind of moved forward through 2021 and got around like October, November, things started picking up. We were getting a couple more clients, and the case studies of our existing clients were just exponentially growing, which brought us a lot of attention. And so by the time I think we were at around like 6 or 7 clients, I was only editing maybe like 2 or 3 of them. Okay. So that meant that more than 50% of the business now was being handled without my input and just based off the things that I was teaching. And so we had to systemize things. I had to record looms of this is how we edit a video. This is how you organize all your files. This is how you do this and that. And that would be training material so that when people like Deepak's cousin were looking for a job, he wanted to live in Colombia remote, and we're like, well, if you learn how to edit, we'll have a spot for you. I sent him a 30-minute recording on like, just watch this video and you can get started. And it took us, I think, 9 months of him working for us for me to have a one-on-one meeting with him to train him how to edit, because he got so good just by watching those recordings. Wow. And that was last week when we had that meeting.
That first time.
Yeah. And so that's when I realized we're really, really onto something here, because I didn't have to dedicate any more than the 30 minutes it took me to record that and send it to get him and multiple other editors trained up. And that's when Deepak and I kind of looked at each other and we were like, whoa, like we should try to think of ways to, expand this out of Ottawa, because it's not going to be sustainable just building it in this small little market. And I can kind of let Deep take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, if we're kind of going in like an order, like a timeline order here, December of that year was the craziest year we've ever.
2021.
Yeah, absolutely insane. I think we did more revenue in that month than we had as a business to that point.
Wow. Yeah, we did more revenue in December than the entirety of 2021.
Just signed a ton of clients. I mean, and this is all organic from referrals and whatnot. And we just went on a crazy run. So our systems were, we didn't have systems. Okay. So we learned that we need, let's
build it.
We should build systems. And just, how many different areas of a business, it's like, well, where do we start first? Well, service delivery. Let's start with service delivery, like the editing, the distribution, the shooting, all those things. Like, let's create SOPs, standard operating procedures for everything. And then, human resources, then invoicing and billing and this and that, all the different areas. And now we can finally say that like a good portion of our business has processes that like I could take someone from the street, plug them in, read this, watch these videos and get started. It's not perfect. We're still tweaking them every day and learning things that we could improve on. But that's when Jamey and I really started to feel in the last couple months since December to now. That's like, okay, cool. I think we might actually have a business here that could almost run without us.
I think you guys have really touched on something that a lot of business owners don't ever get to. And that's the understanding that it doesn't have to be perfect. You see, if you're a brain surgeon, okay, what you do, you need to do perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally get that. Like that's a very specialized skill set that making a mistake costs someone's their life. But when it comes to business ownership and building your enterprise, it doesn't have to be perfect. Imperfection is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Because it's the momentum that you need. It's the moving, putting one foot in front of the other, even if sometimes you have to take 6 or 7 steps back.
Yep.
It's understanding that let's at least move in a direction and just try to figure out what I need to do right now. Not what I need to do 3 months from now or 6 years. Like you have the destination off in the distance from a vision standpoint, but all you need to focus on is today. What do I need to do today?
Yep.
And then maybe what do I need to do tomorrow?
Yeah.
But much further out than that, reality is most of the time those plans are going to change anyway.
It's so funny you say that because, whenever, if Jamey tries to plan something for 6 months out or something, I'm like, dude, 6 months ago, or might be more than that now, Jamey had this strong, timeline of well, I'm going to stay in Ottawa, the city that we're from, until the summer, which is right now. And then I'm going to go to Costa Rica for a bit. And I'm like, okay, that's fine and everything, but you just don't know what's going to happen, right?
Correct.
In February, he left to LA for 1 week, it was supposed to be, and I pushed him to do it. I'm like, he'd always wanted to go to LA. He always talked about LA. I'm like, dude, just go. We had a client there, and so it was cool for him to go, and we can justify it. Goes down. He hasn't been back to Canada since. We're in August, we're in September when we're recording this. Yeah. And so I don't make these plans.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be living in Miami Beach right now, but we live in Miami Beach right now.
You're here.
And we're here.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen 3 months from now or anything. But going back to what you were saying about imperfect action, I think that's one thing that Jamey and I do extremely well is just be 1% better every day. It doesn't have to be 10% better today and then 0 just a little bit, just chip away at it. And we're very good at that in terms of it might not be an insane needle mover day, but most of the times we move the needle. Exactly. And that's what matters.
Yeah, I like to say imperfect action beats perfect inaction every day.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to have goals, you want today to be better than yesterday, but not as good as tomorrow. And ultimately, all of that, everything I just said, is 100% within your control. Because, quite frankly, everything else that's outside of your control, you shouldn't be putting effort and energy into it anyway.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So now we're in 2022. You've built a business. You're actually operating like a business. You're having record months after record months. You're starting to implement systems. What headwinds, what challenges have been most frustrating as of late?
I think one of the things that Deepak and I are still cracking the code on is a consistent client acquisition strategy. Okay. So we've built our entire company of about, I think we're around 22 or 23 clients right now, all monthly recurring. So we've built this whole business solely on the back of one form of word of mouth or another. Okay. And to describe to the audience what those forms are, direct referrals. A client says, hey, I have a friend, you two should chat, and then we sign them. Another is, which is probably the most common, and it's the reason that we're in the United States today, is our clients, some of them have grown so big on these social platforms like TikTok that their fans start asking them who is doing your content. And then they make the intro and we start working together. Okay. As well as the third one, which we do a little bit of, is strategic partnerships with other agencies where they don't offer our service and they're like, hey, but we have clients that are looking for it. Right. And so that isn't predictable. Deepak is the one that's doing 100% of our sales. It used to be him and I tag teaming it. And we actually split those roles apart so that I could focus on what I do better and he focuses on what he does best. And right now, like, we don't have an easy way to predict how, if I put this much time or this many dollars in, how many calls do I get out of it? And then what percentage of those calls am I closing?
Yeah, evaluating your ROI.
Exactly. So it's wonderful to have these referrals. It's validating the product and the service is great.
It's just not predictable.
But it's not predictable, therefore it is not scalable.
Correct.
And so right now we're working on ads. Facebook's a bit weird. Keeps banning banning our accounts for running ads, you know, but we're still working on that and figuring out ways to basically just know when I do X, Y is the outcome.
Okay.
And that's something that we're still trying to crack the code on.
Yeah, the predictability of new client acquisition is always a challenge. I mean, when you're looking to scale, you can either develop a client acquisition strategy that you can leverage. You can go to your existing client base, if you will, and sell them more often, more frequently. Or you can come up with a methodology of essentially just growing different streams of income,
right?
Like expanding what you're offering, not just growing the one channel, if you will, of income.
Right.
When you look at your major accomplishments over just the course of the past 12 months, what would you say is like the top things that you're just like most proud of?
I flew my sister in for her birthday to see me in Miami.
Okay.
So she just left. It was and the pretty incredible thing for me, what actually makes me a bit emotional, was for her birthday in 2021, I was so broke that literally the only gift that I could afford to give her was I took her to a gas station. I told her that you can only buy like a chocolate bar and a drink. So I got her a chocolate bar and a drink. We went on a sunrise hike that morning, which only cost me the gas to get there. Right, and it was quality
the investment
time.
Of your focus.
Exactly.
And worth way more than anything else.
Exactly. So fast forward a year later, and I looked at it and I said, I'm flying you to wherever I'm at. Whether that's Miami or Los Angeles, you're coming in to see me. It's going to be on my dime. You're not going to have to pay for it. And while you're here, I'll pay for almost everything. And I was able to do that. She's 19, kind of gave her the first experience of her life, like, you know, hanging out with her big bro in this sort of context. To me, like, that's literally everything. There's nothing that could have made me more happy. And I think, not to speak for Deep, but I feel like the equivalent for him was when he did the same with his mom.
Yeah. I mean, just based off that, as well. Like for me, being able to fly my mom down, I did that a couple months ago, and it meant the world to me because my mom's never been to America, never been to a beach, and I got to do all that with her and for her. And I actually hadn't seen her in like 10 months because I was living in Colombia before that with my cousin, and I was also able to fly my brother down and see him as well in Miami. And I just think it's great because I don't feel like going back to Canada, so it's like, come see me, guys. And it's kind of a win-win that way. But to answer your question, you know, my perspective, that's definitely one of them, is like, I want to bring everyone up with me, friends and family. I think it's boring to do all this stuff if you're not elevating everyone around you. And I'm pretty sure you could relate because
100%.
That's what this all is, right? You're helping other, you know, business owners and people in their journey, through your journey, through our journey, you know, and help them like learn a lot about stuff, right? For me, I'm not at that stage where I'm helping other business owners. I'm just trying to become the best entrepreneur that I can be right now. But for me, the thing that I'm most proud of is that I do have family members that my salary is paying for their life, and their hard work is showing big dividends for their own life, but it's for something that we all are building together. That's really fun for me because it's like, we could all go get a job and, you know, maybe make more money and this, that, and the other thing. But right now we're all driving on the same road, and just the grind is fun. Like everyone's just putting such insane amount of work in, and like I'll always love that.
Yeah, money isn't the most important thing in life, but it absolutely impacts everything that is.
Yeah.
So the financial freedom that you guys have been able to win over the course of the past year has given you the opportunity to do some amazing things with those you love. I mean, that should be something everyone should aspire to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that you've done it is amazing, but now you're addicted to doing it, right?
Yeah, we can't stop. We're obsessed.
You don't want to go back to when you weren't making any money.
No,
I don't want to go back to Canada right now.
No way.
So what I like to do oftentimes is when I bring people into the studio, I like to get into like this little bit of a thought exercise. So I'm going to ask both of you the same question, and then I'm going to have a follow-up to that.
Okay.
So when you put your thinking caps on for a moment, I want you to imagine that you're able to go back in time to a younger version of yourself. You get to pick what version that is. It could have been 3 months ago. It could have been 15 years ago. You pick who you're going back to visit, and you have the opportunity to share one thing with that younger version of yourself. When, if you will, would you be going back to, and what would you share? So I started with you at the outset. So Jamey, you're going to give this a go.
Yeah, so I'll get very personal with this answer. I would head back to March of 2016.
Okay.
Most fundamental point in my life where my best friend passed away. And it was the most difficult and challenging experience of my life. I talk about it with Deep all the time. It's what I think forged me from being a boy into a man at the age of 19. And I would look at myself and I would tell myself this exact thing. Do exactly what you know you can do. Because there's absolutely nothing about my past that I would change. There's nothing about how I handled that situation, every situation that I'm not proud of. In fact, I would just validate myself for who I was at that point. Because there's absolutely nothing I can sit here and say like, oh, I would want that to change, because I'm so thankful for the lessons that have been had. I'm so grateful for where I'm at in my life, the city that I'm living in, the people that I'm meeting, the business partnership that I have, the team that we've built. If I would want to do as little as possible to change the current outcome of my life. Okay. And so I would just say, whatever you think is best, go do it. Okay. I trust your judgment.
I definitely like that answer. Deepak?
For me, going back to high school, I mentioned I was always an athlete growing up. Playing football and stuff, I had sustained quite a bunch of injuries, and I was playing on both sides of the ball, and I was very, I played on multiple teams and stuff, and I was very, very into the sport. Okay. But what happened is, I dislocated my shoulder so many times that I had to get surgery on it, and that kind of, at that time period, that transition between high school and going into university, that means a lot for like your chances to play ball at a higher level. And so I never did. It was just the injuries were too bad, and my knees and a bunch of things. So I took that so hard, because my whole identity
was tied into that experience.
Tied into being an athlete. Like, I'm an athlete. What am I now if I don't have this thing? Am I just going to be a regular average person? And if I could go back and say one thing to that person, it's that, like, you are not an athlete. You are not a podcast host. You are not any of these things that you're going to go on to do in your life. You actually can't be. You are not a business owner. You're not. These are just things that these are labels.
Live beyond the label.
Live way beyond the label, because you are you. Like, I could write a book tomorrow. Am I an author now? Or like, I could be in a TV show. Am I an actor now? Like, it doesn't matter. You are you. That's the common denominator. So that's what I would go back and say, because I went through a really dark period after that, after no longer having my sport, where I gained a lot of weight. I was, going into university. Everything's just way more difficult in university, school-wise. I'd always been popular and fit and everything. Lost all that when I felt like I didn't have my identity. I was like, I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to be. So I had to really do a lot of soul searching to figure out. And that is what I've landed on in the years between that then and now, is that, like, oh no, I'm me.
Okay.
That's it. Like, that's it. Nothing more than that. There's no, today I'm doing this thing. Tomorrow I might be doing something else. That does not define who I am.
I love it. I could say, getting to know you guys recently, neither of you are living inside of a label. You definitely both live outside of the label, which I love. And neither of you are average. You guys are definitely above average. So I want to continue this thought exercise. I'm going to put you in a circumstance that I want you to imagine for a moment that a future version of yourself is coming back in time to visit with you now in this studio, in this moment. What is it that future version of you is going to tell you?
I think that future version is going to tell me you are enough. Because I think I have such an insatiable desire to do more and to get more and to achieve more. And like I was telling you from before, like I just, in so many relationships and people that I encounter these days, like they tell me that even. And like, and I feel like it's messages that are coming from the future almost of like people kind of telling me like, no, like you're perfect the way you are. Or like, no, like you actually do a lot. Or like, you know what, like why are you even saying that? Like, that's crazy. And it's like, yeah, maybe I am enough. Maybe I should be a little bit more present and just happy or fulfilled with who I am and the best that I can do. But on the flip side, I do have that like almost psycho Kobe energy sometimes where I'm like, yeah, but like I could do so much more.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I get it. Jamey?
I think for me, it was funny. Like the first word that popped into my head was actually, the first phrase was, don't be afraid to surrender. And so the way that I look at it is some of the most beautiful things that ever occurred into my life, you have to surrender to the circumstance. So when Deepak alluded to me going on a 7-day trip to Los Angeles and not coming back from that, I had to surrender to the circumstance and basically say, oh, there's opportunity here. Let me just be open to it and let me exploit it and explore it. And I think that's applicable to all aspects of life. I think it's important in my future to surrender to love when love presents itself. I think it's important to surrender myself to new cities, to new environments, to new goals, new people, new outcomes. What Deepak was talking about of not planning 3, 6, 12 months ahead is so true, and that only is possible if you allow yourself to just surrender to what the path happens to unfold. And I think that's a theme that I've been thinking a lot of recently, and I'm just excited to see, in my future, what does occur when Jamey surrenders.
yeah, it's like Jamie and I, like, we kind of cringe when people ask us, like, what's your 10-year plan?
I hate that
5-year
question.
plan? It's like, well, I don't have a 10-hour plan sometimes. Like, what do we...
No one on earth planned 5 years ago for there to be a pandemic.
Exactly.
It happened, right? So, but again, surrendering, to me, that's a very important part of it because, like, pandemic hits. I lost all 3 jobs, but I had to surrender to that and be like, but where's the opportunity? And then go find it and exploit it and not beat yourself up about it.
Well, I think one of the themes that has seemed to come up pretty often throughout our discussion today is this notion of financial freedom giving you the ability to do things that you want to do in life, whether that's within your personal life or within business. So I want to unpack that concept of financial freedom with the two of you a little bit more. Like, tell me, like, what has your journey of financial freedom been like? Like, how did you actually become in the state of financial freedom that you're currently enjoying? Not saying that it's the perfect state, but where you are today. Like, what was that process like for you?
Well, for me, I like I mentioned before, I had this government job, right? Okay. So it was a well-paying job out of university, way higher than a lot of entry-level positions, which was what was attractive for me. And I'm not going to lie, the fact that, I had to only work really 26 to 30 hours a week, realistically. Like, this was not a 90-hour...
It's government work.
It's government work. Let's just leave it at that. And so I looked at that and I was like, well, this is cushy, comfortable. I got the pension. I got the benefits. I got, everything that I need right now. And at the time I was living with my parents, so I could save a lot of money. Pay off my student loans. I paid that off in record time. I did the smart things. But then I was not happy. I was like unfulfilled, and I moved out of my parents' house and got that little studio that we were talking about. That's when I started the podcast. That's when I became my own man. That's when I started to live by my own rules and my own set of principles, because I'm not under someone else's roof. And I love my parents to death, and our relationship has improved so much since I left because I have my space. So for me, that was not financial independence. That was living paycheck to paycheck and just figuring out how to become a man. The next stage of that for me was, okay, well, I don't like this job. I don't want to do this anymore. So what am I going to do is I'm going to save money from every paycheck, buy all the equipment, start the podcast and whatever. And this wasn't like mapped out and as intentional as I'm saying right now, but looking back at it, this is how that journey of financial freedom happened, is that I invested in me. I kept investing in myself.
That's critical.
And I over-indexed on learning. I bought so many courses. I've spent thousands. Out of that first media company, if I had like 30K in the bank account, which to me was pretty cool, if I had that, in the first few months, I spent 35 on courses and learning. I wanted a credit card debt because I knew how little I knew, and I'm like, I got to learn as much as I could. So in reinvesting in myself and the business, I learned a lot of skills that I needed, but more importantly, I met the people that I needed to meet who would accelerate that path.
Yes.
And so to me, the network was always way more important than any course material, any school, anything like that. It was the people that I met. So through that, I feel like financially, honestly, if you don't focus on the finances so much, but you focus more on the relationships, the finances will sort themselves out. And look, I'm not going to sit here on this podcast and tell everyone that that's a prudent path. Some people, they should be saving a lot of their money and putting it away. Me, I was always just bet on myself. Take the money, bet on myself, because I know I'm going to win.
If you're not willing to give up, you can't be beat.
Exactly.
And that's really what it comes down to. And I think that one of the challenges that a lot of people get into in life is that they try to save their way to wealth, and you can't. It's impossible to save your way to wealth. Can you save your way to a safety net? Absolutely, 100% you can. But you're not in a state of wealth. And I think that the phraseology that you used with regard to investing and betting on yourself is critical for people to learn, because when a lot of times people come to me, because one of the businesses I own is a financial firm, so they'll ask me, Edward, where should I put my investment dollars today? And almost 100% of the time, my initial response is back into yourself. You should always invest in yourself first, because the investment you make in yourself pays dividends that can never be taken away.
It's an energetic thing as well.
Absolutely.
Because when you put it into yourself, you respect yourself more and you exude that. And now we're getting into like a little bit more of a spiritual thing as opposed to financial, but it's all related.
It's all related.
When you meet somebody and you're dressed well, or you're fit, or you are, you're a presence, you can look someone in the eye, all these different things. That doesn't just happen. Like, people don't just wake up like that. You have to have enough self-respect to take care of yourself in those different regards, and then you become a more high-value person just by default. That, to me, I will spend insane sums of money on that type of stuff in my life because I just know what will come back from it, right?
It's the right ingredients over the right amount of time with the right circumstances. It's like baking a cake.
Exactly.
And you can mix some eggs and flour together, but if you put it in the refrigerator before you put it in the oven, that doesn't necessarily result in a cake. So it's knowing all the right steps, and sometimes it's making mistakes along the way too, because you can end up putting some things inside of that cake batter that like was a mistake in the beginning, but after you tasted it, it was like, wow, I had an amazing new invention, a new type of cake. So I love that. Jamey, what about you? What have you seen as your journey of financial independence, financial success?
Yeah, I love this question so much because it actually ties into a philosophy I have on life.
Okay.
And I believe that the direction that I want to head my life and my career, my finances are all aligned under 3 pillars. And the 3 pillars go like this. There's the first one, which is, what can I do for me? And so that means getting my bag up. That means taking care of my finances, taking care of my health, wealth, happiness, and relationships. If all those things are taken care of and they're mastered and they are on point and they are just money, pun intended, then that brings me to pillar 2. Okay. What can I do for others? So that includes my closest friends. That includes my family. The things that I was talking about by flying my sister in, that's in bucket 2. You know, like I want to provide more experiences like that for my friends and for my family and for the people that I love. I want them one day where, you know, if somebody in my circle is, you know, struggling a little bit, I can help them out. And I don't have to worry about them paying me back. It's just, I'm so motivated to give. And so that's bucket 2. But at a certain point, I want to have bucket 1, bucket 2 so full that it brings me to bucket 3. And that's what can I do for the world? And I know for myself, since a very, very young age, I have had an intense desire and passion for wildlife. And I really want to dedicate a lot of my time. I'd love to dedicate my skills in storytelling and in social media to putting conservation projects around the world on the map, doing things with orcas. Deep knows that's like a big goal of mine. Since I was a little kid, it makes me giddy. And so for me, financial independence is being able to do all those 3 things and still have abundance. And that's the goal that I have. Now, there's a lot of moving pieces into making that a reality, but I think I'm doing a pretty solid job at number 1. There's many ways that I can improve. I'm just starting to dabble in number 2, and number 3 will come when it's ready. But that's how I really see my life.
Excellent. We talk a lot with business owners specifically on figuring out how to get their financial lives in order. But what the 2 of you guys are doing is you're starting really from where it should start. You're starting from the heart. You're starting from, okay, what's going to make me whole as a person, because the whole you is able to contribute so much more to the world. When you look at what the future holds for the business, the next, I know you don't like to have a 5-year plan, but what do you see unfolding? Like, do you see staying within the same type of environment? Do you think about different channels? Like, what is it that is on the at least general horizon for the business?
It'll definitely evolve. It's not going to be what it is today forever. I definitely think right now what Jamey and I are really working on is scaling out our remote offer, which essentially means that we can work with anyone from anywhere in the world who can afford our service. And that's, you know, coming up with all the content ideas, having a virtual director be there live while you're recording your own content, giving you tips and pointers and everything and feeding you lines and all that stuff. Our team professionally edits the content and then distributes it to all the platforms. To me, I think that's a very valuable offer, and we've got a very solid price point for it. I think that that's very scalable because it shouldn't involve Jamey or I, right? That's something that I do think that we can scale to a way higher level than our in-person offer, where, you know, let's just say our hearts are in it a little bit more on a one-to-one level. If we were working with you, for example, we'd be here at the shoots, feeding you lines, doing all that stuff. The rest of the service is the same, but it's more one-to-one.
It's more intimate.
It's more intimate. And we love that. We know it's not scalable. We know we can't do that forever. So right now, we view it as, this is funny. We were on another podcast once, and the host said basically, he's like, you guys right now are getting paid to travel and meet people. I love that. It stuck with me so hard. It's like, yeah, we really are, and that's what we view our agency as. This is not some kind of patentable IP that you can sell for $50 million because, I mean, maybe I'm selling myself short, but it's just not. It's a content agency, a personal branding agency. I'm sure we're going to grow and our valuation will go up. But 5 years from now, I think that Jamey and I will be in many different mediums, and whether that be, you know, an education company or courses or coaching, or, you know, maybe it's, you know,
starting a business with a client,
maybe it's taking equity in some of the people that we work with, or, you know, there's just so many different ways that it could go, and I don't know which direction it's going to go, but we both talk about it all the time and recognize that it's not going to be this forever. It's going to evolve. But I mean, we talk about real estate, we talk about buying boats and chartering those out. Like, we want to do so many cool things, right? Right now we're focused on the thing that's the thing. right? And
Don't get too distracted by the shiny object.
No, exactly.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Comes back down to it. It's like when the opportunity presents itself, I will surrender to it.
Wonderful.
That's kind of just it. Like, I don't know what that's gonna look like. Everything Deep said is on the table.
Yeah.
But
It could all happen.
when it occurs, when it presents itself, and when it feels right, I will surrender to it.
Yeah.
The key is just to enjoy the journey.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Every step is a new opportunity.
Yep.
Every new opportunity can lead to more paths in front of you. So just enjoy the journey.
The journey is the destination.
I totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree. Well, I've definitely loved this, and I think that the audience watching or listening to this has definitely got a significant amount of value. I'm going to ask you to dig deep down inside of yourselves, and I want you to both share one thing that you definitely want the audience to take away, whether it's a tool, a tip, a technique, a strategy, or just a philosophy. What should they take home after this episode? Deepak?
I have to think.
Okay.
I have to think.
He's pushed it off to you, Jamey.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's a big question.
It's only one thing, though. One thing.
I think for me, what's made a massive, massive difference in my life is delusional optimism.
Okay.
And
Let's unpack that a bit.
And so what I mean by that is, like, if you were to tell me 5 years ago that I'd be in the position that I'm in, I'd be like, how did I not get there sooner?
Okay.
And if you were to interview Jamey at 21 years old versus now at 26, you'd probably get a lot of the same answers, honestly, because I've always carried myself with such a delusional confidence and optimistic point of view on every part of my life that I've always known, and Deep and I say this together a lot, it's already worked out. Time just hasn't caught up. I don't say that as a joke. I genuinely say that with every ounce of seriousness in my body. And if you really do operate on that frequency where you're like, hey, like, I'm just so delusionally, it doesn't even make sense, optimistic that my life will figure itself out. I am doing the right things to push myself forward and to grow myself, not only as a person and a man and as a business owner. It will work. And then that's where the surrendering to the opportunity comes in. Because if I didn't do those two things, then, you know, like, I wouldn't be sitting on this couch here in Miami.
Yeah. For me, it's very much echoing a lot of what Jamey's saying there, but it's supreme belief in myself. Okay. Like, that's the thing to me that I think sets myself apart from a lot of people who talk the talk, and, like, everyone wants to start a business. It's in vogue. It's the
definitely
thing
in vogue now.
It's the thing. Like, I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm doing some NFT project, or this and that. That's all great, right? But, like, I just feel like, as a very intuitive person, I can read people quite well, and I could tell when they're like, they don't actually believe even what they're saying.
Exactly.
And I don't have that. I believe 100% wholeheartedly in everything that I'm doing and everything that I'm saying, in my actions, in my intentions, and in my mission. And that's what I think, you know, I want to instill that in the people around me and the people in my team, that's like, look, like, if you don't believe in yourself, then you shouldn't be with us. Okay. Like, it's not a good fit. Like, because now everything that you're doing, everything has, like, an energetic consequence. And if you're, like, hesitant about anything, you're never going to be fully sure about anything. I'd rather be 100% wrong with 100% conviction than, like, 50%, you know?
Yeah, I get it.
I'm all in. That's just the type of person that I am.
I love it. You both shared one thing that's super impactful for the audience to take home. I think that there's at least 9 more things you can share. But we don't have time on this episode to talk about it. But how can the audience reach out to you to learn those other 9 things? Like, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, Instagram's probably the one where I'm most active. Okay. So I'm at deepaksharma.co. And then, for everything else that we're up to would be on our website, deepsocialbrands.com.
Deepsocialbrands.com.
Yeah. And then for me, you could check me out on Instagram or TikTok. So that is James Life, Lifee. 2 E's at the end.
Okay.
You know,
because you're extra special. I love it.
I
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
extra
that'll be-
excellent is
yeah,
what
extra
these-
excellent. I like it.
is
I
what it
like
stands
it.
for.
I like it. All that information will be included in the show notes for the audience. Guys, I want to thank you so much for being so authentic, coming in on here and sharing your story. I know I've gotten a significant amount out of it. I'm 100% confident that the audience is getting a significant amount out of it as well. So once again, I want to thank you. And guys, I want to thank you as well. You've invested some time, not just to just pass the time, but to be impacted by the stories of others who have been through the things you may be going through right now. Again, if you're interested in vicarious learning, and if you've loved this episode, 100% just hit that subscribe button, because you're not going to want to miss what's coming next. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye for now. Guys, thank you so much.
That was
That
awesome.
was unbelievable.
You're such an incredible host, my man.
Oh, man, you guys, it makes it easy when we have amazing guests. Man.
That was so good.
Not open.